our ancestors lived in a different world. And they lived in a world where survival was so fundamental that there really wasn't a lot of time to think about the delicacies of the junction between the causal and astral level of creation or something like that. I mean, you know, they're just like, oh, I just need to like have enough wood in my fire that I cannot stay warm through this storm or whatever. So they were in survival mode. And they were leaning really, really heavily on their gross senses of perception. I'm checking into the ancestral archive right now. And I'm just updating status for ancestors for everybody. So the ancestors get it, that what we need to do right now, this generation, needs to be a little more focused on the connections between consciousness and matter. So they're not afraid anymore. And for many of these webinars, the ancestors were really quite uncomfortable by the idea of spending time exploring these finer regions of creation. But they're not uncomfortable anymore. It's okay. I know, so congratulations to the ancestors. And after all, they're with us. You know, they're either back in the human form, in physical forms, dealing with the same kinds of issues that we're dealing with right here and now, or they're in the spirit world where they have a broadened appreciation and perspective of the importance of the finer manifestations of consciousness and how that affects and influences reality. One of the things that's happening is I'm seeing a healing of relationships between present generation and ancestors, particularly with regards to how we produce effects in our consciousness now that aspects or influences their reality. We talked a little bit about that in the last webinar as well. And a lot more about that in the last webinar. But to promote the healing effect that supports the ancestors maximally and helps to lay the groundwork or the platform for the expansion of consciousness in these bodies right now, in these physiologies. I'm just offering that intention into the field of being to see where to start with that one. Because the ancestors came up, being that arose from the field of being is, oh yeah, we have to do something with the ancestors. So my question is, what? So I'm smelling the earth and I'm smelling grass. I'm smelling plants of the earth, plants and grasses. There's hot water on the stove. Yeah, there are cups in the cupboard. Yeah, grasses and earthy, there's intelligence, particularly earth intelligences. So also then what's coming up are like earth intelligences, devas from the earth, and the intelligence of the plants and the awakening taking place in the plants. Oh, and the plants are also experiencing awakening or expansion of consciousness, but they're experiencing it from their perspective. And so it's very useful for us to share. Yes, okay, it's all starting to tie together now as a wholeness. Thank you for bearing with me. All right, so you might remember in the last webinar, we talked a lot about blind spots. Ultimately, if we're talking about expansion of consciousness or awakening, we're thinking in terms of opening up the areas of our own being that are blind spots or asleep or non-functional, or our consciousness isn't going into those areas, and we want to fill them up with awareness and awakening and enlightenment and wholeness. We want to have conscious awareness in all the spots. The value of sharing this particular part of the healing with the plants of the earth is that they are experiencing life through their systems, through their physical systems, in such a way that they see things that we don't see. They notice things that we don't notice because they don't have eyeballs, right? So they're not they're not noticing the particular aspects of the electromagnetic field that we are through our senses and our ancestors. All right. So I'm offering at this point over to the plants of the earth, kind of like bowing down, you could say, to the intelligence of the plants, to that we are open to receive and whatever offering they have or whatever perspective they would like to provide for us to help the initiation of this particular healing that we're in. First thing coming through is on the feeling level and is sweetness. And so the first thing that comes through is what we all share in common. Even though they don't have eyeballs like us, what they do have is the ability to feel, and to feel feelings like, even complex feelings like love and appreciation. I have a plant in my house that I saved when it was dying. Someone had put it in a basement without water to die. It was just a little teeny boy, and now the thing is like, it's about 8 feet tall. And whenever I walk past this plant, I get a little wave of love from the plant. The plant's like, oh, it's you. Oh, thank you. You saved my life, and I've been so happy all these years. So the plants are absolutely capable of manipulating the causal level of creation with their feelings. And they do produce some of the same types of neurochemicals, not all the same, not as much as like our microbiome, but a lot of plants can produce things like chemicals like pheromones, right? They can produce different sorts of chemicals that are not unlike the types that we produce in our own bodies. So right now what's happening is a very sweet sort of loving coordination is being stabilized between ourselves and the plant kingdom. And also looks like a kind of like a promise or a dedication to work together in order to support each other's evolution and awakening. And we're offering right now, we're the first ones making the offering. It's noble to do that. And what we're doing is we're providing our own perspective of what it is to be awakened consciousness, what awakened consciousness is and what that means to us, and what the process looks like from the human perspective. And what that's doing is the plants are interpreting our experience of awakening of consciousness in terms of a light medicine, which is very nourishing to them. They like it. It's very soft to them. And it's interesting, this is like the second or third time since this webinar began last night that I'm feeling that same light medicine moving into our own physiologies. And what it is tending to do is it's tending to work today down through the lower portions of the body in the cord of light. It's working down toward the lower portions of the body, and it's having a very nice balancing effect for all the organs from like around the solar plexus area down to the pelvic floor. This area needs support. The plants provide hormonal support. Plants make hormones. I think they make hormones too. Yeah. So they're providing some perspective of understanding, because plants are very simple. It's not, they don't do the kind of, they don't write symphonies. Well, I guess they actually, sorry. No, they do. Plants have music too, sorry. But I'm just saying that like they don't have appendages like we do. They don't manipulate the world at the gross level the way we do, but they're extremely sophisticated capabilities among the plants to manipulate our world at the chemical level. Think about it. They take photons from the light that comes from the sun and they make food. That's pretty fancy. Oh, look at that. So we get to share. So we offered our perspective of enlightenment to the plants. The plants offer their perspective back to us. There's a whole there are volumes of information, like books, you could say. Oh, plants don't write books. But but they have recorded in the Akashic record all the information, the specific information of the way in which they manipulate our reality at a molecular level, at a chemical level, you could say, atomic and molecular levels, based on their profound understanding of the finest level of feeling and the causal field, how they work with the causal field. So it's all done from the plants. This is the download we're getting from the plants right now. It's all done through the causal level of their physiologies or of reality. That's beautiful. That is totally perfect because, of course, we know how to manipulate that area too, right? That's the finest level of feeling. So that's where we produce different feelings as humans. Our hearts, in the heart area, that's how we manipulate the causal field. We are every bit as adept. We can be every bit as adept at controlling the causal field of creation as the plants. We can create glucose from photons. We could do that. We get photons too, just like they do. Of course, we don't have chlorophyll in our skin, but I'm just looking at that process. Just as the plants produce subtle symphonies that are rarely recorded, so we can produce nourishment from photons, but subtle nourishment. So I'm asking being, is this the stuff out of which our light medicines are made? Because we make light medicines all the time, right? And the answer is yes. Okay, beautiful, perfect, beautiful. Okay, so what the plants are doing is they're reflecting back to us. This is consciousness folds on itself and it reflects. They're reflecting back to us the mechanics of our own nature to promote various waves of feeling which ripple through the causal level of our reality, which is a field. So an impulse anywhere becomes an impulse everywhere, in such a way as to produce various qualities of nourishment. The qualities of nourishment are, they're like our human interpretation of the infinite resource which is inherent to the state of absolute transcendental being, source of creation. So the source of creation is the source of all resource, right? But what we do is we are experiencing that unmanifest source coming up into our constantly coming up into the manifest field, and then we're interpreting the quality of resource in terms of light medicines, in terms of feelings that ripple out into the whole field of the collective, the causal realm, and then give rise to, at the point where the causal meets the astral, they give rise to particular light medicines. Remember, I've talked a lot about the mist, which is in that gap between causal and astral. And the mist is also, can also be seen, oh, it might be time for a visual aid. The mist can also be seen as light medicines, specific formulas. I'm bringing up the visual aid from yesterday. I had a couple of these different visual aids. This one is, this is obviously the Sombrero Galaxy, and I selected it because I wanted everyone to see that the entire astral field looks very much like this shape. At least this is the cognition that came to me in the last couple of weeks, was that if you look at the whole astral field in a shot, you come up with a shape like this that's anchored to being right in the center, and it's also anchored to being at the ends as the edges unmanifest of the threads, and it's all full of threads and threads and threads and threads of consciousness, that we get infinity at the outside and infinity at the inside, which then brought us to this visual aid, which is a picture of the way natural law distributes itself and is reflected in the hymns of the Rig Veda. And so, again, infinity on the inside and infinity, let's see, can I do it this way? Infinity on the outside. Oh yeah, it's a little easier if I put my hand forward. So infinity on the outside and infinity on the inside. So that's like taking the disc and putting it up this way, right? Many forms. It comes in many forms. And I just also yesterday wanted to define the difference between this form of the astral field and Hiranyagarbha, which is known as the egg of the golden egg of the universe, because the Hiranyagarbha includes the whole diagram, right? But this is just the astral level. And this morning I was looking and realizing it's possible that the astral field can produce forms like this. Oh, it can produce forms like this, many of them. There could be many astral fields, maybe not one astral field, but maybe many. When I ask being, are there many astral fields? Hello. I got, yes, there are many different types. It comes in many forms. This is a 108 pointed form. It's the Sudarshana Chakra of Lord Vishnu. Oh, I'm pointing with my cursor. I have to quit doing that. Point with my finger. It's the Sudarshana Chakra of Lord Vishnu, another form of the same. All right. Back to our universes. So I'm just looking to see how the plants feel about the astral field. Like, what's their take? And what's their comfort zone? Where do they like to focus? It's like they're saying just barely. Very, very simple. Very simple. Very simple. Not necessary. Not necessary like it is for humans. We need to have a lot more comprehensive understanding of the nature of the astral level of the manifestation of consciousness. Okay, very good. So thank you with deepest gratitude to the plants. I'm so grateful for their contributions of oxygen to our air and beauty in our world and food that we eat and everything. We cannot ever thank them enough. Cannot ever honor them enough.